Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Knack. We have got some live tournament action coming at you. It is going to be on MLG's Metalopolis Shooter versus or now I'm going to really mess it up.
DDoX. It's
DDoX.
It's not DDoX. It is DDoX. Been confirmed by their manager, Freedom, I believe.
Yep.
So finally getting underway. Meanwhile, in the brackets, look like UGP, SS, and Nori has finally started. Nori coming back from being away. Lobber will play the winner of this, and it has been noted that DDoX did 2-0 Lobber in the winners bracket. So there's no extended series, so it will just be a fresh 0-0 start. But winner of Lobber and the winner of this game will go play on Dignitas Killer, who was knocked down by UGP Swip. And TSL Hyun, who unfortunately forfeited because he was doing another match, did get knocked down. He will play the winner of UGP, SS, and Nori. So lots of good stuff coming out. And shout out to Soviet Gaming. Wow. Apparently a kid I went to school with was a member of Soviet Gaming, so I think they're still around.
That's cool. Yep, Shooter plugging it. Don't blame him there, man. He's a phenomenal player. He's one that he actually spent a lot of time in our tournaments for a good while. You might remember picking up the tail end of that. I think he appeared right around the time he started to kind of trail off for a little while and find some other things to do. But he's been such a great support. It's nice to see him playing. DDoX, new player to me though, and he has shown a lot of strength. And here we are watching him play his PvP. Looks like DDoX is purple up here at the 12 o'clock.
And Shooter going for a second pylon before gas.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I've never seen that done before. I don't know if that's a mistake or what. And there goes his gas. Maybe he's onto something. Maybe oh, you know what? I think it's a variation of the 3-stalker rush that gets the pylon kind of early like that and lets you get up the stalkers a lot quicker because you're chrono boosting them out.
Very well could be, because he's going to start. He's going to put down his Cybercore.
Oh, he's even delaying his Cybercore.
No, he's going Zealots. Look at that. He's queued 2 Zealots up.
Yeah, what is going on here?
I do not know, sir. 2 Zealots queued up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that pylon was intentional then, because that pylon that definitely delayed the Cybernetics core by a different amount, and of course, queuing up that second Zealot definitely delayed the Cybernetics core by a good amount, almost by a full 30 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the differences there. DDoX, way ahead on that. His Cybercore is actually about to complete, while Shooter's is only halfway done, and he is behind on the gas here as well. Just a little bit, not much, but it does make a difference. But he is working on some Zealots here, and he's going to have a couple Zealots out on the field. Cybercore for Shooter is about to complete, and I assume we're going to see him transition into some kind of tech here. He's grabbing his second gas, so, I mean...
I don't know, Shooter's got a lot of money saved up. I'm really not sure what he's going for here. He had he's put a lot of money, he's not making probes. I'm quite confused as to what's going on.
Well, he's chrono boosting out his Cybercore. That Warp Gate technology. He's putting down another pylon right now, and he's working on a Stalker, but chrono boosting out his Warp Gate. So maybe he's just going for a 4-gate and just maybe thought that he'd already put the gas down or something and just put that pylon down out of order. And
here comes the 4-gate at DDoX. We know he likes to do this. He's done this before. I love the fact that he's gotten this Stalker pressure out first.
Right.
Does a lot for him. You can see it didn't work in his favor against VIP in the last time we saw him play, but maybe this time around, considering the fact that Shooter has made quite a few blunders with his build order, it could be well in his favor to do so. You can see that Warp Gate's a good 20 seconds ahead of Shooter's, and that's going to make all the difference in the world. And Shooter now just throwing down 2 additional gateways, does have the sentry out, so he will be able to force field for at least a little bit of time, although he only has 1 force field saved up on that sentry.
Right.
And Shooter running back with his forces has a few more Zealots than his opponent. Actually, 2 more, and his opponent has no Zealots. DDoX is behind the supply, so I don't know what Shooter's really going for here. I'm quite curious. Another sentry coming out. Warp Gate research still trying to be chrono boosted. There is a proxy pylon down for DDoX already, so he does not have to wait for that to warp in units. There goes his... Yeah.
We've got a robotics facility now for Shooter, so that's what he's going to try and do here. It is a little bit delayed because of his kind of wonky build there at the beginning. He does, however, have now 2 sentries out on the field. He's about to start warping in some units, and it looks like DDoX is going to start getting aggressive here, though. Putting down 2 pylons, going to start to warp in units up on the high ground if at all possible, and he does make 1 Stalker up there, but great force field.
He does pick off a sentry, which is a great thing at this point in time, considering the fact there's only 1 sentry left, that Immortal is nowhere on its way out. This is really bad position for a shooter. He's just, yes, he has a sentry to be able to force field. He won't be able to force field anymore. He's warping in another one.
Yeah,
he is warping in one more emergency sentry. Just barely going to go ahead and make it. Zealots do get down there, being able to do work on the stalkers. Pylon does go down. Another force field does go down as well. So DeaDoX, getting these pylons out, I do like this decision to build multiple pylons, but it might be a money sink at this point in time, especially considering the fact that he can just range them down with them stalkers. Yeah. And Sentry's now going to work. He does have one more force field left. He needs to be careful, though. He's not really controlling his units too well. Zealots are getting down the ramp, allowing the Stalkers to shoot at him. Well, no Immortal queued up, though, and he doesn't have a lot of gas, but he has a lot of minerals saved up, and this is not good.
Yeah.
And because he sunk all that money into Sentries.
He's stacking a lot of those force fields, too, and, I mean, that's a problem. You got to be cost-effective with these. Now that he's got
he's not going to have enough energy for another force field once that one's breaking. Now he's going to be in a lot of trouble, and DeaDoX is just going to be able to push up this ramp very aggressively. Does not matter how many units that shooter has. DeaDoX just has an advantage now. Warping Zealots into the high ground, has 3 pylons in great position, and this is just no Immortal queued up, and I don't know what happened to shooter, man. He just kind of fell apart. Immortal now being sent out. No Chrono Boost going down on it, though.
He's going to lose all of his warp gates there except for one.
GG. Coming at a shooter.
Yeah.
Maybe trying to stick it out, and there you go.
A great 4-gate there from DeaDoX. Beautifully played. Thank you guys for coming out. We'll be headed into game number 2 here in just a few moments. We'll catch you guys then. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Here it is, game number 2 between sGShOoTeR and DeaDoX. Nice little game there. sGShOoTeR with a little bit of trouble, I'd say, Windy. In game number 1, looks like he kind of messed up, I think, on his initial build order there, and it didn't end up costing him the game. I think some of it came down to also his force field placement, and so maybe a couple things that he's going to want to work on here in game number 2. But for DeaDoX, he's got to be feeling nice in a best of 3. Taking down game number 1, it does make it match point for him. And here, moving forward, do you expect to see some 4-gates out of these guys? This is a big map.
Oh yeah, this is a huge map. I would not be surprised if one of them decided to be super economic and go for... there's actually a build where you kind of fake a... which is made for maps like this. You fake almost like a DT rush where you get those 2 gas after your first gate, and you actually get nothing but... You Chrono Boost out your sentries, and you actually take an in-base nexus pretty quick, and you just force field your ramp. I have seen it done before. It's kind of risky because if your opponent does any kind of 2-stalker rush or any kind of early pressure build, you can pretty much lose before that first sentry is ever out. So you have to be very, very careful. But I've seen it done before, and players who have done it have kind of just thrown their opponent for a loop because it's, well, I can't get into space, and I can't kill his expansion. What do? I've sacrificed too much economy to be aggressive, but I can't be aggressive. So it can, on maps like this, you can definitely see macro games out of Protoss players.
Right, it's so true. And macro games tend to be pretty explosive when it comes down to it in PvP matchups. So I'm hoping to see that actually on this particular map. I was actually pleased to see him choosing Calm Before the Storm, or Sea Calms Before the Storm, if you will. But gas going down here for sGShOoTeR. Looks like a little bit better timings here this time. Some a little bit more. Are you pleased with this so far? But he's late now, I think, on his...
Yeah, his gas is way late. His gate was a little bit later. He has sent out a probe to scout way ahead of his opponent. Although he will scout his opponent last, which is unfortunate. Although both players, well, they're now going to go ahead and cross paths. And no high five out of them, though. Cybernex core going down for DeaDoX, but sGShOoTER is still 15 seconds behind his core. I know he took a more economic gate. On a map this size, really not going to be that much of a difference, but putting his... Why are you putting your Cybernex core so up front? I'm really beginning to question sGShOoTER's train of thought. I just don't think putting the core at the front of the ramp is a good idea.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to get it sniped, but I mean, you do have to remember that it does have 100 extra HP over a gateway, but again, there's no real reason for him to be putting this stuff next to the ramp, so it's basically putting it at risk. If those guys do start coming up the ramp, then I mean, he could potentially lose his cyber core if he has to back out. So
this is true.
I mean, I hope it doesn't come down to that, obviously, but yeah, I mean, those are those are buildings that you tend to want to protect. But it looks like Chronos here for DeaDoX are going down on his gateway. He is Chrono boosting out some stalkers. He's got his second gateway up and running, and he's grabbing his second gas here.
Yep, and it will be a 3-stalker rush, and it looks like sGShOoTER's doing the build I thought that I was talking about. Look, he has his probe in position to take a quick expansion. Although I don't know if it's going to work because this is eDoX doing the exact counter to it is his 3-stalker rush, and he's Chronobel's 2 stalkers out. Third one is nearly done, and unless Shooter can get out a sentry in time, he's going to be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and looks like eDoX is headed out across the map right now. He's tossing down his additional 2 gateways, making a perfect 4 gate.
And here goes the gateway down the front of Shooter's ramp. Very much a Zerg positioning on those buildings.
Well, I just don't like seeing him moving forward here. These stalkers are going to be able to outmaneuver these units. He's going to lose his stalker here. Now he's down to just 2 zealots. Trying to chase down 3 stalkers, not going to work at this point.
And it's just poor decision making from Shooter. He's actually walling off his ramp entirely.
Yeah.
I mean, that will prevent Lings from getting up because you'll be able to shoot them down, but you cannot zone out stalkers like you can Lings. So.
Right, and they do additional damage to armored units, and guess what buildings count as?
Armored units.
So, I mean, it's just one of those things. Maybe not the best planning here from Shooter. But it's been a long evening, you know, and players at this level of the tournament, they tend to start getting a little bit tired. And maybe that's what we're seeing here with Shooter. Is just
Shooter does have a sentry out though. It's building up energy slowly.
Second one
warp gate's finishing. Yep. And that'll sustain him for a little bit. He actually can get out one more sentry before he's totally expunged of gas. And if he can delay long enough, if he can just keep delaying this push, and he's warping in 2 stalkers, actually not the best decision. Does get a decent force field, catching those stalkers a little bit off guard, although he needs to get his in position so he can start doing damage to it.
Right.
Otherwise, he's not going to be able to sustain it. And there goes down the second force field, a little bit better timed. Although he doesn't have another force field after this, he needs to warp in another sentry, although elects to get 2 more stalkers. Not the best choice.
Right. Not the best indeed. And here comes another stalker of all things. So he's hoping that he's going to be able to take this down with the multiple stalkers.
Yeah. He does have another
sentries up though. See, he can't afford to lose these sentries.
Yeah, they can be sniped very easily. There's a good number of stalkers there, although eDoX could be a little bit afraid that there might be a robo out. He doesn't have any idea that the expansion has gone down, which is kind of huge. There goes the Twilight Council. Let's say eDoX should be throwing a Twilight Council down, and he is actually finishing. Blink should be going down any minute.
Yep, there it goes.
And Shooter, he's fully walled off, which I think is a really poor decision because it's going to really affect his mobility. Now that an Immortal's out, and as well as an Observer, this is going to be the problem for eDoX. This Immortal's out, now these force fields are useless. He's going to go to town on this Forge, which has done nothing this entire time besides just exist. And these gateways are going to go down. And now Shooter's in a really bad spot. He's supply blocked. He doesn't have a Robo Bay out to counter this. The only thing he has going for him is this Nexus. This extra Nexus is giving him a little bit of extra economy, but he hasn't done anything with it.
Right. I mean, he's up to 38 probes, but probes, quite frankly, aren't super effective against stalkers in this particular situation. And he's warping in a couple more units. He absolutely needs it. But look what happened. He's losing his cyber core here. So stalker production is now 0.
Yeah, stalker production's zilched out. Sentry production's gone. Where is his Robo Bay? It's just finishing up now. Hopefully he will start an Immortal right away.
Yeah, he needs it, but Blink is about to be finished, and that's the problem. Now, the trouble here is eDoX does have an Observer. He is going to have vision of the high ground. Blinking up to the high ground is super simple at this stage, and Blink, look at him, he's ready. He's chomping at the bit to blink up here, and he's about to do that just about any moment. Blink is a couple seconds out.
More Zealots being warped in for Shooter because all he can. Still hasn't started an Immortal, though. I can't help but think that Shooter's nerves are just getting to him at this point in time.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like he may be in position to lose game number 2 here.
Although, if he keeps on holding on this, you can see he's actually crawling ahead in supply, a good portion of which is workers, but the Blink comes in, going to go to town on those Zealots. Without an Immortal out, Shooter has no help with defending this, and there's even a Nexus going down for eDoX back at home, realizing that he just has an aggressive advantage on his opponent, able to keep him pinned back in his base. And Shooter now trying to do what he can. Wow. Still no Immortal coming out of that Robo, despite having so much money stockpiled up, probes being full. He can't afford this because he does have a huge probe advantage, and he does have that Nexus out for a while. If he is able to hold this, it will be a miracle, and I think he may be able to stabilize if he does, but I doubt it's going to be there. And still no Immortal, man.
I know.
And he does. He's able to push this out because he pulls pretty much every single probe that he has.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, he is still ahead in the probe count. He's got to get these guys back to mining. Needs to be working on these warp-ins, getting his tech units out here. But where did his...
I mean, he's going to go ahead and depower one of those gateways.
Yep.
Blink is done, so that force field's not even doing anything. Another gateway is going to be depowered. And Shooter's just all over the place. Now finally getting Immortal, not even chrono boosting out despite having plenty of energy to do so. Two Zealots in the Sentry hanging back if it's natural, not doing much of anything besides making sure those probes are working, beating that slave drum.
Yeah.
And Shooter, man, I'm really just worried about his decision making. It's just not at all logical.
Yeah, it's been tough. I mean, losing
and finally the
Cyber
Immortal's
Core
out. This
is
will
not
make
a
the
good
difference.
deal.
And he needs to engage right now before any more of his structures go down.
Yeah, he does. He really needs to be pushing forward here. The Immortal is so good at ripping through Stalkers, even considering the Blink here. The range of that Immortal is plenty, but you'll see the Blink micro here from DDoX is going to be extremely helpful. But I don't know. Maybe Shooter's going to hold on here.
He will hold on. He will stabilize, considering the fact that DDoX has not really got his economy up behind this, but the fact that he's being so aggressive and definitely has a skill advantage on his opponent. I'd be hard-pressed to see Shooter win with any kind of advantage from here on out.
Right.
In terms of skill. He's now getting out a third Immortal. Once that third Immortal does come out, though, he will have a significant advantage on just the composition of Shooter. And he's actually transitioning to Colossi, finally making a tech switch into something a little bit more advanced. Immortal's in position, zoning out that one Immortal, great force fields out of Shooter, finally doing something right, although one Immortal does go down for him, a second one now coming out, and probes being pulled once more. Good decision, though. He can't afford it, and now, he could have gotten that Immortal very, very easily. He needs to get an Observer of his own to take out that Observer of DDoX. That is what's giving him so much freedom to dart in and out of this, there is a Warp Prism in the back of Shooter's natural. That's going to be a big distraction. Allow him to push forward in the front. You can see now him pushing up the ramp. And Shooter trying to get back into position as quickly as he possibly can. Colossus Den has finished. Probably will start Colossus production immediately. Although there is one Warp Gate that's unpowered, and that's going to be a big draw onto Shooter's economy. Cannot warp out of that.
I agree.
And two Immortals pushing forward, and this could be pretty big. Even with Blink Micro, Immortals just do so much damage. More units coming in, and Shooter finally being able to stabilize thanks to those two Immortals. A Colossi on the way, no range yet, but
and he still has 4 gateways. I mean, it's unbelievable what Shooter's been able to pull off here. He's ahead in the supply count, which is amazing, and he's ahead in the economy amazingly. But here comes another drop to the back. Looks like that's going to clear out that mineral line here for the time being. A couple warp ins here is going to be able to clear those guys out, though, in just a moment. And looking pretty good. Yeah. I mean, Shooter's in interesting position here. He's strangely ahead in many regards, but if you check units lost, obviously he's behind there. He's been having to rebuild all of his buildings over and over and over again, and it's got to be wearing him out at this point. But working now on Thermal Lance, and he's really keeping his cool here. I'm impressed.
No, I really have to say, I mean, he's definitely not played as well as he should. He's lost a lot more than his opponent. His opponent's his economy lead that he's had is closing very quickly. Had DDoX not been so aggressive in looting units so frequently, I think he would have been better position if he had realized that his opponent had that Nexus there for a while and just decided to fall back and macro up himself. He had done enough damage to Shooter to make it worth his while, and now if Shooter decides to go ahead and take a third here, I think he'll be in great position, especially since he has Colossus Tech out way ahead of his opponent. He's going to have the Colossus advantage, going to have the Thermal Lance out. It's going to be pretty much DDoX's game to lose. He just has to play it smart. He has to realize his economy's a little bit at a deficit compared to his opponent, but he's been aggressive. He knows he's kept his opponent more or less unstabilized because of all the damage he's done.
Right. But Shooter, I mean, this is where Shooter starts to shine, and that's the point I want to make here for Shooter, is that we cannot count him out yet either. He's got such a phenomenal ability to A-move. Let me tell you.
I think every Protoss comes with that ability built in.
I know, it's like
I used to play Protoss mainly. That was the first race I ever played.
Ooh, it looks like our good old Warp Prism is going to go down there for DDoX. So nice snipe there from Shooter is going to prevent a little bit more harassment there. And he's currently working on a Forge too. I just want to mention that. He's going to be grabbing out some weapons level 1. Not a bad little play there for him. We need to get some upgrades here for DDoX. Notice he's grabbing out Charge first.
Yeah, and this could be a good timing for a Shooter coming with 2 Colossi when his opponent doesn't even have range yet, I believe. So this could be a really big pack. Although one Colossi goes on immediately. There are 2 Immortals here for Shooter, able to do a lot of work. Stalker's blinking forward, gonna pick off that second Colossi. Now Shooter's at the disadvantage, has to fall back, cannot engage this without taking too much of a loss. And you can see Blink Stalkers are so good, being able to pick off another Immortal, trying to scoot and shoot on those Stalkers, gonna lose another Immortal, and Shooter losing a good composition of his army. The high Colossi going down.
Unbelievable.
And eDoX able to retain his Colossi despite not having range.
And look at this, eDoX continuing to push here. Smart play. And he actually outnumbers his opponent here with just the Stalkers, unbelievably. Here comes your Warp-Ins. We do have that one Colossus. Hopefully he's going to be able to defend here, but this is looking really tentative.
Yeah, and Colossi are really good for one reason. That's just because without Colossi of your own, your Protoss opponent is never going to engage, just simply because they outrange it so well. Even with Immortals in there, you can zone out the Immortals with your own units and even bring the Colossi back on the high ground or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, looking at the workers,
play, but, I mean,
Shooter is up.
Yeah, he's still up, but he does have his third base up earlier. But it comes down to defending here, and you can see eDoX starting to put together a pretty scary little force. A lot of Archons now morphing in, 2 of them up there at the forward pylon, and he's already got 1 mixed in the army as well as that Colossus. So charge lots, blink stalkers. I mean, he's got such a nice tech advantage here. Cannon's going down right now for Shooter. I think he's absolutely making a wise decision here. If anything's going to be able to help him hold, it's going to be a good defensive posture. And that
I don't know. I have to disagree with you. I really dislike the cannons. I definitely think they've been better put into forge upgrades that are being chrono boosted out, which I don't even know.
Well, maybe. What it does, though, is it is going to choke it down, and charge lots will rush into a choke. And that's what I think what he's trying to get at here is having the charge lots rush in.
Point. These are charge lots, so...
Yeah, so when the charge lots do come in, they'll be kind of choked up. His Colossus should be able to rip through those pretty good, leaving him the Zealot advantage, and then hopefully he'll be able to defend here. But look how many Archons there are. That's the scariest part. And
and here it comes. eDoX saying it's time to go, despite all the cannons being there.
Great force
Archon's going to work, but they're being torn apart to cannon. One Archon goes down. About 4 more remain. Colossi ranging down from Shooter's high ground, doing a good amount of damage. I think Shooter's going to be able to hold here. Those cannons actually do help him quite a bit, despite being a big money sink, and he will have just a economy advantage. Does have better production than his opponent, although not having the best tech, that's for sure.
Yeah, just unbelievable defense though. Choking that down with those gateways and cannons, I thought was brilliant play there. But here comes another attack, and it looks like eDoX still in the mix here. Could potentially make this happen. Blinking up to the high ground here, but Shooter kind of beating him to the punch. He blinked forward first, kind of preemptively figuring out where his opponent was going to be headed with these stalkers. And look at that!
Wow,
forces the GG.
And you know the sad part about this is Shooter played very poorly, in my opinion. That was not master level play. It's very sloppy. It was all over the place. Just his decision making wasn't the best. Like I was just sitting there, I'm like, make sentries, make sentries, make sentries, and he wasn't doing it.
Yeah, I know. I mean, his early game was really struggling there in both games, and I think in a lot of ways he was lucky to come back here, but he did it. That is going to take us to game number 3. We'll catch you guys in just a few moments there. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Knack. We've got that live tournament action continuing and concluding here. It is game 3 of 3 between Shooter and eDoX. Got Protoss, and yes, he does. It is going to be a PvP here. Wendy's still joining me. We're having a good old-fashioned time. It is going to be cross positions, obviously, on GSL, since it does force that. And another PvP. So what are you thinking here? I mean, obviously we've seen Shooter kind of bungle up his initial builds, I'd say, in both of the first 2 games. In a lot of ways got lucky there in the second game, able to come back off of pure macro ability, and I think a brilliant defense at his third. But I'm scared. Honestly, I think eDoX is a favorite to win at this point.
And Zerg, and Shooter saying he's Zerg. I would give this game to eDoX. He's a very good player. He's going to be going up against Lauber if he does win, who he did 2-0 in the winners bracket. So it's going to be definitely in his favor if he wins here. You definitely, I mean, when you always go up against an opponent who you previously won against, you definitely go with. Unfortunately, not in our tournaments. You don't go up with any kind of game advantage, but you do go up with the morale advantage, and definitely you can get into your opponent's skin. So I want to say that eDoX definitely has the advantage here over Shooter, simply on the fact that he knows his next round will be a lot easier than this series, perhaps.
Right. Well, and he's a very aggressive player, too. And in PvP, aggression pays off very, very well. And, I mean, Shooter is, not only is he playing very defensively so far this evening, but he's also messing up playing defensively, and you just can't afford to make a mistake if you're going to do that. And so going forward, looks like we're seeing pretty standard timings, but again, funny builds out of sGShOoTER. He's just now getting his gas, while guess what? I mean, DeaDoX is already mining.
Yeah, he's got that Pylon before. I'm just not sure what his intention is here. I'm absolutely baffled, my friend. That Pylon, getting that Pylon before your core is pretty common, or sometimes you get it after, depending on what kind of build you're doing. But I don't know. Just if it made sense, if it came to some big kind of culmination point, I would totally agree with that. But someone in chat knows what sGShOoTER is doing with that.
Yeah,
please let me know.
I'd be interested to hear if somebody does have some intel on this particular build. If it is, I mean, he's doing it the same way he did in game number 1, which is really strange. It seemed like such a mistake, but and he did lose game number 1, so clearly something wasn't right there. But Cybercore now for DeaDoX, he's chrono boosting out his Stalker and his Warp Gate technology back over here at sGShOoTER's base. He's just chrono boosting his Warp Gate.
Has taken a second gas though.
Yeah,
pretty early
gas,
too.
And I mean, I'm guessing 3-gate robo here, but
I'm going to assume with a gas that early,
he's about to get supply blocked. And so, I mean, look at this. Oh no, he's going to be fine. He's got a pylon.
He has a Pylon warping, and he will be just fine. Although he does delay the sentry for a little bit, chrono boosting that out instead of the warp gate, putting about 15 seconds behind DeaDoX, which is significant. I mean, I can't stress enough. Like, if you're going to be the aggressive player, and DeaDoX has always been the aggressor in all these games, is that if you have a warp gate advantage, you have a very distinct advantage. And DeaDoX, scouting around with his Stalkers, does find this probe that was sitting here hoping to play down a proxy Pylon of his own. Right. Holding control of that watchtower, making sure no probes or any other Protoss critters of his opponent were trying to get across the map. And now throwing down a Robo Fae, so...
Yeah, Robo for DeaDoX, that's right. But in the meantime, at sGShOoTER's base, it is a 4-gate, my friend. 4 gates.
Oh,
indeed.
this is no, it's not a refined build. There is a 4-gate variation where you get double gas and you keep 2 guys in gas rather than 3 in each. It's a little bit more efficient for some reason overall. I remember Artosis talking about it. I'm sure he could be one to elaborate on it.
The probes do stack when there's 3 of them. You can see that they wait for nearly a whole second to do that. But nice.
Yeah, and DeaDoX
nice
pushing forward.
Here.
Okay, force field, catching 2 Stalkers trap, gonna back up with the sentries and zealots. Gonna be able to clean up 2 of them, so actually turned out well in his favor. Gonna shut down the aggression of DeaDoX. sGShOoTER now in a good position, has the 4-gate, but he has no proxy Pylon, so it's very much on the defensive end of the 4-gate. He will not be able to be aggressive. He sunk a lot of money into 3 sentries, as well as a couple early zealots and Stalkers.
Well, he's grabbing Blink out now. He is going to be going for his Robo here, so he's going to try and micro this one. Probably going to see an Observer come out here in just a moment, and he's going to go for another Blink Stalker play. I wouldn't even be surprised to see him bring a couple Immortals with. Obviously, Immortals so effective against the other opponent's Stalkers, but look how far ahead sGShOoTER is actually in the supply count right now, and sGShOoTER getting a Twilight Council of his own. How very interesting.
Off of 4 gates too. I think this is kind of where sGShOoTER's going to go wrong, though. You're sinking a lot of money into tech and getting a Robo at the same time. Where do people find money for these things?
I don't know, man. But yeah, I mean, that's 300 extra minerals essentially on 2 gates there that he could have been spending on something else more important if he is going to be going for the tech. But
and he's even a little undersaturated too. He can afford to make 3 more workers to reach that 25 or 24 worker optimization on space. It actually varies from map to map and base to base on each map which amount of workers per base is optimal. I happen to know for a fact in the top position here, 24 workers is ideal.
Right.
So that is the exact number you want, given the distance. There was some crazy thread on Team Liquid that's what I love about Team Liquid. There's always these guys who go super hardcore research into the game and figure out that 24 workers on the top on this base for Protoss is the ideal number. Right. So
now sGShOoTER is chrono boosting out Blink pretty well. He is going to have Blink up in pretty decent time, but guess what? DeaDoX does already have Blink out on the field, and he's setting up for a push here. Cruising up here, he's also going to scout out the 3 warp gates, which is going to be a nice little pick for him there.
Yeah, he's going to know that there's now 4 warp gates out. Has to be well aware of the fact that, this Observer coming over sGShOoTER. We'll see DeaDoX is sGShOoTER moving position. No, he actually just maybe has that on a move command going to follow it. And this could be really bad. And there you go, picks off the Observer. Big pick for DeaDoX right there. This will allow him to rest very much freely. Going to be able to pop in and out of the main and force shooter in all kinds of directions.
The only
As you
good
can
thing
see,
for shooter right now is that he does have a good bunch of sentries here as well as zealots, and he is going to have an immortal out on the field.
yeah, and there's the big blank in. Stalkers from shooter pushed away. A good force field's going down, zoning out some of the stalkers from really getting there, but also zoning out the zealots, blinking out of the base, keeping a few on the high ground. Immortal has not popped out, and that will really disturb eDoX away. And shooter, I cannot believe it, actually getting an advantage on his opponent, just given the unit composition. Now in a big, intense blink micro battle, although 5 stalkers will generally be 4, even with intense blink micro. 3 more coming to reinforce, excuse me.
And here comes Shooter down from the high ground, too. He's bringing all of his stuff. Now, do you think eDoX should go for a counterattack here and try and poke up the backside of the base once more, or do you think it's a smart idea for him to start backing out here?
Well, he's definitely at a unit disadvantage, especially composition. Getting out of Immortals alone, he should only just back up and try to play defensively at this point in time. He's picked off the observers of his opponent, so that's a pretty big pick. It'll allow him to move a little bit freely. Definitely use that blink mobility to kind of jostle his opponent around, make him really work for those stalkers, and this is a good decision. Going to go ahead. Notice his opponent's entire composition is out of position.
Right.
Going to go ahead and pick off a couple pylons, maybe some probes, and going to work on his pylon. He needs to be careful. Once that Immortal gets over there, he needs to get out of that base, and he will get out in just in time.
Damn.
And this is what I'm talking about, getting that observer and a hallucination coming out for shooter.
Yeah, I agree with this. I imagine that he's going to start putting down some hallucinations of Immortals, making it very difficult for eDoX to snipe the Immortals. I think it's a brilliant play, but he's also going to go ahead and grab a Phoenix out, wants to get a scout out on his opponent, which is also smart. Needs to know if his opponent's taken an expansion. I think that's what he's wondering at this point. But, I mean, his unit composition for shooter looking really solid. I mean, he's definitely ahead at this point. He's just trying to figure out, how do I pull the trigger against such an aggressive player here who loves blinking into my base. He's already done it twice, once with me breathing down his throat too, and he took that as an opportunity instead of a time to back out. And so yeah, I think shooter's making good decisions at this point, but he is playing it very safe, and he doesn't want to allow the eDoX to catch up here, and that's going to be the scary moment here.
Yeah, and eDoX needs to be very careful. He knows that he needs to keep on harassing with these stalkers and maybe take an expansion of his own.
Right.
That is, I don't see him winning this off of one base. His opponent just has too much stuff out, and as long as his opponent retains that amount of units, he's actually getting out one base Colossi too. Yeah. Actually, supply blocked right now. It's actually a pretty significant deal.
Yeah, it really
now
is.
Getting that Colossi started. He won't have range with it, but he does have that one Immortal, which is going to do wonders against this Blink Stalker composition eDoX. Still, that one Observer out is going to do wonders for him. He will be able to get inside the base very easily, harass. So as long as, if I were eDoX, I would maybe set a probe to the base of my opponent's ramp, see when he's moving out, and then just blink on in. And it's actually maybe able to pick off this gateway if shooter's not careful, and he will get it, and that's a pretty big pick at this point in time. Needs to be careful. Actually getting the Immortal out of position. Should have committed to it. He did have it down to 10 shields, meaning that next couple rounds from the Stalkers would have taken him out. It is an armored unit.
There for shooter is he did pick off eDoX's Observer. Now that's
big.
Did he? Yeah, he did.
Oh, yeah, he did.
Did indeed pick it off, so smart play there. He is taking an expansion, but so is eDoX. But eDoX cruising in here with a lot of Blink Stalkers now against an Immortal and blinking out immediately. Absolutely.
Uh-oh, the unit's getting split off. Never good. You gotta be careful, very careful with your pathing with the AI in this game. It can sometimes get a little bit confused. And eDoX trying to swing around from the army, maybe catch it out of position, swing back into the main. Although in that situation, you kind of get yourself into a base trade. And if your opponent has an Immortal, he will win a base trade. Immortals do amazing damage against buildings. eDoX needs to be careful, though. He's going to engage into this composition on the high ground. That's not what he wants to do.
No.
And he has to be wary that his opponent does have Blink too. So that means anytime he blinks away from his opponent can give chase with Blink Stalkers of his own, despite at a deficit. Although eDoX had not noticed, had warped in 3 Immortals of his own.
Yeah, I mean, that's his saving grace at this point. He's trying to put these guys up on the high ground, trying to go for a flank attack when shooter does decide to pull the trigger here. But shooter's going to take it slow. I think he knows that he's ahead at this point and is going to try and make really, really smart plays. And he's waiting for a couple reinforcements. He does have now, how many Immortals does he have in there? Just 2. So he is going to be at an Immortal disadvantage, but he does have double Colossus, and that's a big deal. He is going to wait for, I think, Extended Thermal Lance to complete as well before he does push forward.
I don't know if he has the time to, though. He will have a third Colossi with that, but, I mean, Extended Thermal Lance is still about another 60 seconds out, and that'll give eDoX time to catch up in supply. You can see that shooter, despite having Colossi, most of it, 12 of that supplies is in Colossi. So if he can get rid of the Colossi well before any other units go down,
And we've seen that from DDoX too. He's so good with that blink micro, blinking forward, sniping those Colossus as quickly as he can. And I mean, Colossus, guess what? Well, they're an armored unit. And
oh, there comes some hallucinations.
Ooh, nice.
Does DDoX have
Colossus.
any kind of awareness this is happening?
Well, he doesn't have any. He doesn't have any detection in his army, so he's not going to know which ones are which. Here they come. They are going to act as quite a meat shield here for just a moment. And look at that, backing up. All of his zealots disappeared almost instantly before they got any damage done.
Although 3 Wanderers are flanking behind, they are doing a ton of damage. They do manage to pick off 1 real Colossi, although 1 has gone down, 2 have gone down, a 3rd one goes down. There is 1 immortal left for DDoX. I think he might be able to pull this off so long as he can focus down the real Colossi.
Yep.
And
doing a pretty decent job, but I mean, still 1 Colossus on the field, and here comes those immortals for sGShOoTER, and he's looking to be in a pretty nice position, blinking forward, and look at this. He's now into the mineral line, blasting away, and it appears that sGShOoTER is going to beat DDoX. Unbelievable here.
I don't have words to describe this right now. This is unreal. I definitely thought sGShOoTER was the lesser player here. DDoX definitely being able to do this. Wow, I cannot believe this. GG.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it absolutely was a great game. sGShOoTER holding on. He played very defensively this entire series, despite having gone a 4-gate of all things in that last game. But he turned it into basically a 4-gate defensive position, and he did pretty well. He made a couple small errors, I think, earlier on in this matchup, but coming out the winner in the end, that is going to mean he is going to move on. Thank you guys for coming out. Thank you guys for watching. Don't Alt-Tab. Always Alt-Starcraft. We'll see you guys in just a bit.